into the home straight, but it's Amano Petrov of Germany who grits his teeth. His country have never won a running gold medal at the World Championships, and Petros opens up 3 or 4 meters, grits his teeth. Simbu's coming back for more. He's closing with every single stride. Simbu on the line. May well have just got there. Wow!
Wow, indeed. And here's another take on it, this time from the BBC's Steve Cram.
Simbu's doing his best to try and catch him, but I don't think he's going to be able to. Petros is hanging on. It's close. Simbu's coming back at him. Has he got time to get there? Petros is looking for the line. Who's going to get there? It's Simbu!
So, if you haven't seen it, you need to go and watch the final. Look, watch the whole, not the whole thing, but watch at least the last half hour. But the final 400 meters of the men's marathon today in Tokyo has to be one of the most dramatic finishes to a track and field event that I certainly have ever seen. It's what I woke up to watch this morning. I must confess, Gareth, I thought it was going to be a pretty boring day. That was the start. It actually stayed at that level. What an unbelievable day in Tokyo today.
Yeah, when I woke up and watched that, I made a note. I wrote, Simbu of Tanzania beats Petros of Germany in a sprint finish in the marathon is not the line I was expecting to read today or ever. It was quite incredible. And I can't stop smiling when you were playing those clips back, because it's almost one of those events where you think that the winner is going to change somehow when you watch it. Have you ever had that feeling?
Yeah. Yeah, it was just, I mean, I've watched it. I showed everyone at this work meeting today during the lunch break. I said, you got to see this. People have never watched athletics in their lives, and it's just unbelievable. The manner of it. So that was, so we gave the result there. So Simbu of Tanzania, first ever gold medal for them at a World Championships. Petros of Germany would have been, I think you might have just caught it in that soundbite, their first ever track gold medalist among the men. And he was denied by 300ths of a second, which is a smaller margin than the 100 meters were decided yesterday. Both of them, by quite a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Just an
After 26
unbelievable
miles.
Yeah, it's just incredible. And the only regret I have is that they showed it from the front. And I just was, crying out. Because Petros, if you watch the last 350 meters, they sort of come into the stadium, 3 of them actually. So that's the other piece of intrigue. The Italian was in 3rd place eventually. So he gets dropped with 2:50 to go. And then these 2 men are going to sort it out. And Petros has the lead. He puts his big surge in, I'd say, with 200 or so to go. And he's got a lead that looks like it was going to go the way yesterday's women's marathon did. But Simbu fights back, and you heard them both say, Simbu's coming back for more, Simbu's closing. And from the front, you just couldn't see it unfold. You knew it was happening, and you just couldn't see it. And yeah, they've tried to frame a finish line picture with sponsor logos in the background, and they've cost us the side-on view of what would have been one of the... I mean, it was anyway. Let's not complain.
No, you can't really complain, but it was definitely done for the sponsors, the hoardings on that line, but don't worry about that. Let's go back a little bit further in the day. We had called it a weak field, and I think we'd done them some disrespect yesterday when we said that. But one of the main factors behind this race today was the heat, without a shadow of a doubt. Yeah. I think there were 24 DNFs in this race, which is a huge proportion, including, unfortunately, the guy I was talking about yesterday, the British runner, KRS. He dropped with, I think, about 3K to go, 3K or 3 miles to go. He said, I tried my best. I just got too hot, simple as that. The conditions were so tough. When I stopped, I just took ages to feel all right again. I used all the stations to be diligent with the ice and sponges. While it helped, it still just got too hot. And we saw people just stopping and walking. One of the favourites ended up stopping and walking.
2, in fact, both Ethiopians, right? The guy who we put the picture up yesterday, so I suppose that was our pick. He didn't finish.
Yeah. So. Let's not talk about jinxing people, because we've jinxed people all day long. So we even
jinxed the weather in Tokyo. Let's take credit for that jinx. That's how powerful our jinx is. We changed the climate. It was a really interesting race, and you know, I understand. I take your point. You're right. We did them a disservice, but I don't think it was a super strong field. But what it goes to show is that you don't need like a super high quality field to make for an absolutely amazing race. And this race was so interesting. There were so many things happening in it, particularly from 30 kilometers onwards. And I think some of you on Discourse made the same observation. You had 20-odd guys, more than 20 guys at halfway, which was reached in 1:05, just outside 1:05, right? So it's extremely dense, and it stayed like that all the way to 30 kilometers. And then I think it was the Ugandans who put a little bit of pressure on the front of the race. And at 35k, the group was 15, right? Carey's was in that. Emil Karras gets dropped at 36k, and it was pretty interesting what happened between 35 and 40k. I think this was the most interesting part of this race, other than the last 100 meters, of course, because the Ethiopians, in particular Chelangat, they were clearly shifting the pace, fast, slow, fast, slow. Because when Karras was dropped, the group was cut to 12. He was dropped along with a Canadian Cam Levins and a Zimbabwean Mpofu. But what was interesting is that Levins and Mpofu actually caught back on. So then you know that the pace at the front has slowed down again. And then they sped up again because at about 38, maybe just before 39k, Chelangat pressed on again and it split the race again. So you had quite an interesting barometer in the form of Levins and Mpofu, and Karras to a lesser degree, but by 39 he'd stopped and he'd started walking. But it's a shame that you don't see these shifts and these little micro tactical moves in the way the race is coverage. And that was my one thought, is because the 5k split from 30 to 35 was 15 minutes 20, so that was solid. From 35 to 40, it was 15:46. So, and there was a little bit of a hill there where Chelangat tried to push and so on, so it wasn't perfectly flat. But you know the tempo was changing because Mpofu and Levins come back on, then they go back off. Then they're hanging on, and then a big move, suddenly it's a straight line. I think it would be really cool if they plotted a little graph of the speed of the front of the race over 100-meter intervals, because you'd get a much better sense for what those guys in the front were actually doing. Because it might have looked like they were just setting one pace and trying to sort of run towards but he was trying to do something at the front, Chelangat and Kipyegon, who eventually paid for his own efforts and got dropped. He was one of the first to go off that group of 12.
Well, that was a question I was going to ask you, because you mentioned this micro shifting. Do you think that was a deliberate attempt to shake people off, just as sudden accelerations and then drops a little bit like the bike riders do?
Yeah, I do. I think that's what he was trying to do, and I think it was interesting. He kept looking at his watch. Did you see that? Like, I don't know what he's looking at. Is he looking at a GPS speed? Is he looking at heart rate? But I think he was quite deliberate about it. And it worked insofar as he took that group from 14 down to 12, as we said, then to 9, then eventually to 5. And unfortunately, he was the first of the 5 to drop off, and that was ended up 5th, Chelangat. But and it's not dramatic surges, otherwise you'd see them, but it's a second or two over the course of 200 meters, which takes them from 3:10 a k, which is the 15:50 split basically, to 2:55 a k. If you go 2 seconds faster over 100 meters, that's 20 seconds improvement. So you don't really pick that up, and it's a pity, because I think some of the intrigue is lost in the way that it's covered one-dimensionally or two-dimensionally, if that's the better word.
Going back to the heat, because Sebastian Coe had mentioned the heat beforehand. Do you think that, in fact, I'll read what Coe said actually in his press conference beforehand. He said, if we're committed to athlete welfare, it's inevitable that we're going to have to stage some of our endurance-based events, maybe at times of the year, that are going to give optimum chances for the athletes and not leave them in a healthful performance deficit, Coe said. But do you think that they shouldn't do that? Do you think that it's fair play that you have to race in heat, just as you might have to race in cold or the wind of Boston?
Yes, provided it's not dangerously hot to the... And I mean, the 24 DNFs tells you that it was pretty severe. I'd be interested to know in Doha a few years back, what was the proportion of non-finishers there? What's it like typically? Because the one thing about a World Championships, especially now, is if you are dropped from the front group at 25k, you can step off the course and still run a full marathon in New York or Chicago, or even, Berlin's maybe a little close. So there's an incentive to drop out beyond the heat, you know? But I quite like the heat as an element that you can adapt to, you can prepare for it, and it throws in a little bit of randomness that doesn't exist when it's a 12-degree day and it's optimal conditions for running. I think it rewards people who are specific and deliberate in their preparation. But obviously there's a point at which it's intolerable and now it becomes dangerous. I don't think it was that today.
But doesn't that mean that the weather shouldn't be the biggest decider of the event? Because if that event was running 20-degree heat today, the outcome would have been completely different. I think you'd have to agree that.
Yeah, the whole race would be different, because someone would go through halfway in 63:30, Maybe that puts a couple of the guys out. I mean, they're pretty high caliber athletes. Maybe they'd all be together then still. But you're right, it changes the dynamic of the race. But it's the same as putting hills in. Maybe a hilly course changes it. So I don't know. I just like the variability that you get from a little bit of weather condition. And it's not as though you can't prepare for it.
Yeah, you can't. I mean, I was thinking of KRS, who was in Leeds just 10 days ago, or whatever, doing his training, and I'm pretty sure it wasn't 30 degrees in Leeds.
I can assure you it was not.
That adjustment would have cost him, without a doubt.
Yeah,
but perhaps he couldn't afford to, or afford the time to be heat acclimatizing.
Perhaps, maybe he needs Paulius to come and build him a murder chamber in his garage.
That's true. Well, we don't know if he did or not. Obviously, he really suffered with it today.
And there are some people who just cannot run in hot conditions.
No. For
whatever reason. They may be, bigger people are disproportionately disadvantaged because your heat production is larger and you don't lose the heat to the same degree. So that's in a performance sense, that might be insurmountable for some people. But the extent to which you adapt. And I think in the history of these major championship marathons that are run at the Olympics and Worlds in summer, as opposed to the fall and the spring, you'll find a few out there performances. I think back to Dina Castor, for instance. I'm pretty sure a lot of those surprise medalists owe their medals to their deliberate preparation for hot conditions that other people haven't quite optimized.
It's kind of nice in a way as well for us amateurs, because it reminds us that the elites are only people too. Because they suffer in the heat just like we do. We get it wrong sometimes, and so do they.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but let's not pick holes in it just because of the heat, because that finish. Let's just go back to the finish. How on earth do you prepare to sprint in a marathon? Because it's not something you can practice, because you can't go out run 26 miles and practice sprinting. No. How do you know then, in say the last kilometre, if you're these three guys coming up, because I think there were three of them with a K to go, you're in territory you've never been in before. Certainly not in a World Championship final, but not even in a marathon. How do you know what you can do? How do you know when to go? It's just a complete lottery.
You don't. And that's why the second mover always has an advantage, I think. So Simbu played it better, I reckon, because... it's who blinks first almost, who goes first, and if the other person isn't dropped by it, they will win more often than they will lose. Mm-hmm. Not that I picked Simbu. It looked like Petros had done it.
A bit like Jimmy yesterday. If anybody picked these three out in their predictions, then well.
Not one, actually. We didn't put the rest of the top 10 up there. Let's just do that quickly. So we said Simbu from Petros. It was Ioani from Italy who was third. They came to the stadium together. And in fact, you'd be hard-pressed to recognize any of the names in the top 8 there. Well, not recognize, of course. Petros we've seen in big city marathons. But to pick as a favorite or a medalist in this race, Cam Young was the best of the Americans. He finished up in 9th place. But yeah, all the pre-race favorites just... We're run out of it with sort of 7Ks to go.
I was looking at Clayton Young coming in 9th place there, because he was only, a minute behind, which sounds like nothing. I know it's a long distance in the marathon, but I think some of these athletes like Clayton Young might be kicking themselves that they couldn't quite hang on when it came down to it, because this was their big opportunity.
Yeah, for sure. You can imagine you've gotten to some of them within sight of the finish, the stadium. And then you come away with nothing at all, so it's difficult.
Yeah,
but so it was. I just think it was one of the most intriguing marathons I've seen, and it reminds me again of how much I enjoy a non-paced race where the outcome is the thing that matters and not the time. I didn't care what was the time today. Who cares? Do you know? I don't care.
I don't know. I was wondering because you said that they must have gone out slower than 107.
No. It was 105.04 at halfway. I should have checked. And so the second half's marginally faster. I was able to time the last 600 meters, by the way, 1:37, which is pretty rapid. And the last 200 was 32 seconds, which is some going at the end of a marathon.
2:09.48 was the final time.
Yeah.
So it's not as slow as I thought, actually.
No, not bad.
But as you say, I didn't even look at the time. I couldn't have told you without looking.
No, fantastic.
So we'll go down in distance today. We're working from top to bottom today, and we'll go to more chaos in the men's steeplechase, the race which I claimed that nobody really wants to run, and you just end up running in it. And that one's kicked off as well. The men's steeplechase, the 3,000 meters. It was a slow-paced start again. I don't think it's anything to do with the heat. I think people are just being naturally reticent about putting themselves out there. And it took about 500 meters to go. Mikelski made the first move, and he was being tracked by Germer. And it took literally nothing had happened until this point. So I'm not skipping anything. But on the bell, Germer starts to pull away. And then on the back street, you can see El Bakari making his move, and he's just closing and tracking him and closing. And you think, well, this is it. They're coming up to the water jump.
Seen that movie before, right? Bakali's won a number of world titles just like this.
Yeah, exactly. And you think, it's coming. There's no chance. So he overtakes on the water jump. And then as they come onto the final straight, you just see this guy dressed all in black behind, Beanish. The guy who had his face trodden on a couple of days ago in the heats. And Beamish coming from behind with a sprint finish. And there's one more barrier to go, isn't there? And El Bakali goes over that barrier, and I don't know, he seemed to either hesitate or pause. I don't know if he thought he had it won. I think Kevin said on Discourse he thinks perhaps he looked at the screen and thought he's got enough of a gap. And he doesn't seem to go flat out. And by the time he realises the danger, Beamish is on him, the New Zealander, and going past him. And it was one of the most extraordinary finishes again in a race. We see two. This finish line is blessed.
No, it was incredible. I think for El Bakali, I got to go back and watch it again, but he seemed to float the last jump, whereas Beamish ran it. And so possibly. I think the switch in momentum between them, and then once you've got that momentum to re-accelerate after 2,940 meters of running, is a tough ask, and that was the difference. But we showed Beamish obviously in the context of having his face stood on in the fall, but he got up from that fall and he looked really good qualifying. And we sort of mentioned, that there were a bunch of guys who might be behind El Bakali fighting for minor medals. I would be lying if I said we expected them to beat El Bakali, especially in a slow race. But it's another reminder, like when you let the pace go as slow as this one did, and they were outside 3 minutes a K, right, for the first kilometer. Mm-hmm. And then for these men to be running outside of 9 minutes when they're regularly trying to break 8, it's so slow, and it just invites so much chaos at the finish. And we've seen that in the 10,000. We saw that there. We've seen it in the 1500s as well in the qualifying races. And a guy like El Bakali must be kicking himself, because if that race is faster at the pace that he's still comfortable at, I can't see how they might still beat him, because obviously Beamish is no slouch, but you just let people in,
When they showed us the scenes after the race, El Bakali was absolutely distraught. He was inconsolable in tears. And I don't know if that was because he'd made a mistake and he'd eased up, because I can't, like you say, I can't imagine him tying up after running that pace.
No.
I suspect he did ease up after that last hurdle. Perhaps you say he floated it, lost his stride a bit. We haven't mentioned the bronze medal, which was Serem from Kenya.
Let me actually put those results up there. Yeah, so at least Kenya got onto the podium. They've had an awful Tokyo other than winning the women's marathon.
He did a Jimmy, Serem. He was slaloming his way through the...
Yeah,
the guy, I think, the Ethiopian, Samuel Faiwu, he threw himself over the line. It was quite an extraordinary finish yet again.
Yeah, there's just something about the desperation of a rare event, how badly they want to do well in it. No one's running like that in a Diamond League race. And then Germer, who was the aggressor at the start of the last lap. And I think to your point from earlier on, when you get towards the end of these races, how do you know when you should go? I think Germer made the mistake of going too hard too early, because he faded pretty badly in the last 100. I think he's probably in better shape than 6th place in this race, but I think he spent his matches between 350 and 150 to go and didn't have anything left at the end. Whereas Beamish, you didn't even notice Beamish until the last hurdle.
No, indeed.
So that's exactly how you want to run it. Yeah.
It was only El Bakali in it, as far as I could see. So never again will I criticise the 3,000 metres.
the steeple, anyways.
3,000 metre steeplechase. It's the same thing, isn't it?
Sometimes they run it without the barriers.
Okay.
So anyway, speaking of barriers.
Speaking of barriers, the final event on the track was the women's 100 metres hurdles. And coming into this, I'd completely jinxed the two, the two I predicted yesterday, and we had another complete surprise winner because I'd said it was going to be a straight run between Williams and Russell, and they didn't medal. You mentioned Visser, and she came last. I asked you if Toby Amusan was going to come anywhere, and you said no, not at all. And
Yeah,
we
we were on
completely failed
fire
to
last
name
night,
any
Lee.
of the any of the medalists.
I did say,
So there's not.
of the 4 we named yesterday, I did say one of them would come 8th.
You did. Okay, you can have that, I suppose. If
But I
that's
mean,
some
hey,
sort of,
even a broken clock and all that, right? But yeah, this was this is hurdles though. Like it's like this.
Well, we should mention actually who did win. With the gold medal, it was Ditaji Kambundiji,
Kambunji.
who was a Swiss. Say it again.
Kambunji.
Kambundji.
Yeah.
See, I completely said that wrong. From Switzerland, and she had a national record in 12:24. Amusan, our not favourite, came
No chance.
silver, no chance whatsoever in 12:29. And Grace Stark, who we did actually mention, I'm sure I mentioned Grace Stark.
You did, yeah.
Yeah, she got a bronze in 12:34.
And Masai Russell, who we both thought would win it, was the first one off the podium.
She looked totally shell-shocked
Oh, yeah.
by the whole thing. And I think that's what happens when the favourites... But as you said, it's the hurdles. Anything can happen.
Yeah, that's one technical mistake. I mean, the difference between running for the women 12:24 and 12:44 is so tiny.
I think Williams clipped a hurdle, and that probably cost her.
Yeah. So yeah, it's women's hurdling is an interesting one at the moment because there are legitimately 7 or 8 women who could win that. One of the discourse members picked Akira Nugent to win that race, and she was 9th in the qualifiers, came 3rd in her semi-final, and she wasn't a wild pick. I mean, she was a legitimate pick, been very successful in the Diamond League. But you make one technical mistake, maybe you get away with it, but 2, you're done.
So Kambundji, she actually came from lane 1. She won it in lane 1. I wonder when the last time we saw a sprint race run from one of the outside lanes.
Well, not at hurdles, but Sha'Carri Richardson won the Budapest race from outside because remember she qualified.
Oh
as a
yeah,
lucky
she qualified.
So
she was in the outside lane, wasn't she?
That's the first, I think, in 8 or 9, whichever one they used in that event. But that's the only one that's the first one that comes to mind. But that means Kambundji was one of the 2 fastest losers in the semi, right?
Yep, would have been.
So, and that's the nature of the event, Tomorrow's the men's equivalent, and you'd be foolish to bet on anyone, really.
Indeed.
Yeah.
So I said that was the last event on the track because there was still an event going on in the stadium, and that was the men's pole vault. And to nobody's surprise, it was won by Mondo.
No way.
No way, no. Corrales, fair play, gave it a good crack. He only just failed at 6:15. I thought he was going over, and if he had got 6:15, it really would have put some pressure on Mondo.
Well, Corrales only just got over 6, right? Or was it 5:95? He had to third attempt to qualify to clear that height. So he pulled out a big one there, and he did, to his credit, put pressure on Duplantis.
But Mondo, of course, won in the end, as he always does. It's like one of those films, as you say, that you know the ending.
Did he go for the world record? I didn't see beyond the winning jump.
Of course he went for the world record.
Oh.
So the world record that stood at 6:29 is no longer the world record.
Oh, did he break the world record?
Yes, he did it clipping the bar with his final jump. I thought you were joking.
No, I stopped watching because I was like, oh, well, it's one. So I really didn't care to watch anymore.
No, he had 2 fails at 6:30 and then cleared it, clipping the bar with his final jump.
You buried the lead there in that story. Let's be honest, because that's what
I was building up to it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I'll let you go.
Because my day was like in meetings, and I was sort of surreptitiously sneaking looks at the semi-finals and so on. And eventually, I got clear, and I said, I got to watch these 1500s, the steeple, and the hurdles. And then when that was finished, I said, my job's done. I didn't even think about pole vault again.
I was telling the tale from the start of the event to the finish. So yes, and it finished with, obviously now we know, Mondo getting 6:30 in the pole vault. And I've got to admit, this guy is box office.
Yeah.
I've faced some criticism on Discourse before because of my dismissal of his world records 1 centimeter at a time. But yeah, today he is something else, and he is charismatic, and you do have to really admire.
Yeah, of course.
Everything he does, without a shadow of a doubt. And I've just been reading an article since that Sean Ingalls whipped up really quickly, saying about how he's changed his shoes into some model called the Claw, which apparently has got some claw on the front that helps him on his run up. And then he's also Sean says he reached for his stiffer pole to help him. I don't know anything about the way the pole vaulting works, but apparently the stiffer the pole, the higher you can go. But I think it's more difficult, obviously, to handle. So yeah, Mondo's done it again, and hats off to him. There is absolutely no criticism from me this time.
No, but even in the past, your criticism hasn't been dismissive of his abilities. It's just, well, maybe there's a little.
There's not a lot of doubt, to be fair.
Yeah, exactly. It's a not a ceremonial, but it's sort of a foregone conclusion. But there's still spectacular elements to it. It really is. I don't know if there's been an athlete who's so dominant relative to his peers or her peers in the sport ever.
I was thinking about this earlier on. I know you hate the phrase "the GOAT, greatest of all time."
I don't mind greatest of all time. I just hate
because
GOAT.
it's so subjective. But you cannot say that Duplantis isn't the GOAT.
Oh, in the pole vault for sure, absolutely. It's one of the easiest. I reckon it's the easiest event to pick the greatest athlete of all time in.
Yes,
without
a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah, there's never been someone as dominant and spectacularly
was
good.
Bubka as dominant in his time?
I don't know, actually. That's a good question. It was before mine.
I'm sure somebody will know.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to compare their win-loss records. I mean, Duplantis barely loses. He lost one this year, didn't he? He was a little bit off colour at one of the Diamond Leagues or something. Or am I imagining that?
I don't remember him losing, but
maybe he just didn't get a world record. It felt like one.
Probably, but there we go. It's 6:30 now.
Well, yeah, I should have known that coming in, but as I say, I stopped when the track action was done.
I just assumed you knew.
No.
Okay, so there was another field event, the women's hammer throw that we mentioned yesterday.
Yeah.
Once again, it's been won by a North American who's very good at spinning around in circles.
And, yeah.
It was won by Rogers. Let me just find the full details. Cameron Rogers of Canada with an 80.51 throw.
Yeah.
With Ji Zhao and Jiale Zhang of China coming second and third.
Mm-hmm.
So where was that stat that we were given by George over on Discourse?
100 kilometers an hour release speed.
Yep, it was travelling at more than 100 kilometers an hour when she let go of that hammer.
The interesting thing to wonder there is whether the Chinese release speeds are higher or lower, and whether it's the speed of release or the angle of release that determines the result.
All of the above.
Because, there's an optimal angle, obviously, as well, right?
Yeah, 45 degrees, I would say.
Mathematically, yeah. But I don't know enough about the mechanics of this, but it's the same for the shot put. But you're stronger in the forward plane than up, so the optimal shot put angle isn't 45, it's somewhere between 30 and 35, because that way you can use a chest press instead of a shoulder. And I wonder whether in the hammer throw, whether that release angle is a bigger determinant of the performance than the speed of release.
I feel us wandering out into uncharted waters here.
Oh, but
with people who know a lot more than us.
At least we know it. But it's the question I would ask, and I'm sure that they evaluate that biomechanically. They would look at that. I remember going to a conference just after London, and UK Sport had a guy talking about long jump performance, and he'd been employed by UK Athletics to measure the takeoff angle and the force on the plate, the board, and the speed of the athlete in the jump. And they worked out that those three things, ABC, in some combination would determine the distance, which is pretty obvious. But if you sped up, then your takeoff angle would be a little shallower. If your force was higher, your takeoff angle would be higher, larger or steeper, as it were. But you couldn't achieve that off certain speeds. And they basically just spent their time optimizing those three inputs to determine the long jump. It was pretty interesting, the extent to which they track and measure some of these things.
Mm-hmm. It always amazes me, events like the hammer and the javelin as well, that there aren't more injuries, like sort of strain injuries, because the forces that must be going through the body at that point must be quite incredible. And you'd think that right at the end of what you can do, you'd think you'd see far more injuries, but you don't really, do you?
Not in competition, but I'm sure that in training you must see some pretty severe injuries. But you're right. I mean, but remember, you're only seeing 6 throws. So what proportion of an athlete's extreme performances do you see? I don't know if it's as many as that, you know. So even if an injury happened every 150 throws, you'd never see one in an athlete.
No, you wouldn't see it in competition, but you'd think they'd be injured all the time.
Yeah.
I just wonder how you condition yourself not to.
I've never seen anything about a hammer throws conditioning, but Jacko Gill, who was a New Zealand shot putter, used to post his training videos on YouTube, and they were pretty incredible, actually. Some of the power movements that shot put athletes do in training and some of the weight work they do is unbelievable.
Oh, I can imagine with the shot put, yeah.
Anyway,
we digress.
Yep.
Few other notes from today. Cole Hocker.
Oof. Yeah.
Cole Hocker managed to get himself disqualified for barging in the 1500 men's 1500 semi-finals. He barged the German Farker, who raised a protest, and rightly so, I think, because Hocker got himself boxed coming into the final straight, and I think he panicked a little, and basically sort of saw a gap, which was sort of there, but inserted himself in front of the German, who immediately disappeared off the back, raised a protest, and he's been instated into the final. And Hocker, who's one of the favourites, has been kicked out. And apparently the appeal that the Americans have made has been turned down.
What's your view on it? You say rightly so from the German, and I agree with you. Do you think they should have disqualified him?
If they hadn't had, then the German had been very, very hard done by. Because favourite or not, you've got to be even to everybody in the race. And you can't just sort of wade in front of somebody, waving your elbows. There was a few comments on Discourse about Steve Ovett doing it.
Yeah, that's what the commentary said as well when I watched it eventually.
Yeah. So, I mean, what was your thought? I think it's fair enough.
I agree. I watched it knowing it had happened because it was like other events. I only caught up with these things, hence the fact that I didn't even know Duplantis broke the world record because I'm very much on a treadmill here. So I watched it knowing, so I was looking for it, and thinking maybe I was going to see something subtle. Is that it? But it was so obvious. And it was so, it clearly had a material effect on both his race and the German guy's race. So you think to yourself, if it didn't have a material effect, and maybe we'll get onto that when we talk about that women's marathon water bottle thing, then you can give a yellow card for it. And you say that's a warning. But when it has such an impact on the race, and if Hocker didn't do that, I don't see his path to coming in the top 6. So on both fronts, it's legitimate. It's a shame, but and on that, is there a way that they could reinstate the German without disqualifying Hocker? I don't think.
Well, you talked about this, didn't you? About giving Inga Britson a free pass at the Diamond League finals, saying, "Well, you could just chuck somebody in another. You know, it's not like you're limited by 8 lanes. You could just add somebody else in."
Yeah,
potentially they could do that.
Although the 12 guys in these races are having enough trouble staying out of each other's feet, I don't know how 14 or 15 goes. Did they put out of interest, did they put the Dutch guy in as well? Because he was also disadvantaged by Hocker.
I don't think so, no. It's the only person I've seen who's been put into the final is the German. But I don't think he really affected the Dutch guy, though, did he?
Well, he sort of parted the two of them. Because the gap was between the German and the Dutch guy. So he and I forget his name, but he sort of moved them apart in order to get through that. So I thought that there might be a protest from both of those athletes. And I'll tell you who the big beneficiary was Neil Gurley, because he was behind Hocker, and Hocker opened up the space he needed to come through into 6th place and qualify for the final. So he got a little bit fortunate there, I felt. But Hocker, it was so interesting because, like we've said already, the 10,000 they were too slow. The steeplechase as well. You just invite chaos when you go too slowly. And my impression of these 1500s was similar. And Kerr and Hocker both tried to do the same thing. They didn't want it to be a 3:42 pace, because then it's really chaotic. So they went to the front, but they didn't go to the front and commit to making it a 3:32, 3:33, right? So it was still really bunched up. That first heat, the one that was won by Laros, Kerr was second. I mean, those top 6 were a meter apart at the finish line. I've never seen a finish so dense. So it's so compact. People are going to fall over one another. And so I don't think Hocker can be faulted for doing what he did in the same way that Kerr had worked. The big difference is that Kerr makes a decision with 450 meters to go that Hocker didn't, and that's to hold the lead no matter who comes past. Because Hocker puts himself at the front of the race, and when they come to 420 meters and the bell's being rung, he suddenly finds himself third, because 2 athletes go past him in no time at all. Now you're on the bend. You can't go around them on the bend because that's wasteful. And then with 300 to go, everyone's going to make their move. And all of a sudden, Hocker was in real trouble. And I think, as you said to me in a message, he just panicked. Whereas when you watch Kerr, they broadly had the same strategy up to 1,100 meters. Chariot, I think, the Kenyan chariot, Robert comes onto Kerr's shoulder and Laros is there. Kerr does not give up that front inside position on the bell, at the bell. And he holds it all the way through the bend up to 300 to go. He holds it all the way to 200 to go. And from that point onwards, Kerr's safe, because even if he's spent a little bit more than he would have wanted to from 400 to 200 to go, he's comfortably the second or the fastest guy in that field, and he's not going to get run out of the top 6. So that one decision, when that first athlete comes past Hocker, is what puts him from being in a controlling position into a very fragile one. And it's because there was, when I watched it back, there was only one moment with about 280 to go where Hocker might have had an opportunity to just step diagonally out, get into lane 2, and then reposition himself. But he didn't take it. And as a consequence, the other chariot, who I think is running for Qatar, the Moroccan, they go past him. And the next thing, he's in 7th. And it's with 200 to go, he's in big trouble because it's not going to open up like it did in Paris. And incidentally, Laros almost ended up in the same situation in the first heat, because if you watch that, at about 700 meters in, so with 2 laps left, he gets swamped from 3rd into 8th. And he makes a move to step out on the bend. He goes into lane 2.5. He repositions himself, and then from then on, he's comfortable. But it can change so quickly in those 1,500 meter races when they're not fast enough.
I think as amateur viewers, and I've never run on a track before, I don't think I've really, until now, really appreciated how difficult it is and how skillful it is. Not just to be physically capable of doing this, but mentally capable of making these decisions. And it's something you talked about with Malcolm on that podcast, isn't it? That making these decisions when you're physically stressed is very difficult. So I think I've got even more appreciation of what these athletes are doing at speed and in these high pressure situations. And today we've seen exactly what happens when you get it wrong.
Yeah, exactly. And you can do the post-mortems and you can say, there was the moment, there was an opportunity. But those in the race, that window of opportunity is like less than half a second long. And if Hocker doesn't respond and he gets passed through or around with 400 to go, like it's almost instantly a crisis. And he just couldn't get out of it. So it's just it's a shame for the race, because like Ingebrigtsen gone, Koech gone, Hocker now out as well. It means that a race that we thought might be between 6 or 7 is really like 2 or 3. But I mean, we'll preview it tomorrow, right? Because it's on the Wednesday is the final.
Wednesday, I think.
So we'll do a proper preview there. But I don't know. The whole dynamic of the race is a little bit different now.
Let's make our job easier. It's Laros or Kerr. End of story. Here we go. Done.
And the third medal.
You mentioned bottles very briefly there, because we did have another protest, and this was after the women's marathon. And the eagle-eyed viewer spotted it on Discourse, and I've forgotten the name. I do apologise. But somebody noticed that they said, I wouldn't be surprised to see Team Kenya disqualified from the women's marathon. Their support crew is passing bottles and support over the barriers at unassigned locations. Per a US ATF spokesman, Team USA is reviewing the reports about Kenya's support crew passing bottles and support outside of the and they were hoping to bring the O'Sullivan, the American marathoner, into the medals. But apparently they did file a protest, which was ultimately declined by the officials. A bit of an odd one, this, because you aren't allowed to assist runners at all here outside of the official water stations.
No, it's why there are zones. There are marked zones where you're supposed to remain inside of. I was just trying to find, because when I looked at the official result page from the website, there was an indication there that a yellow card had been given, and I think it was to Masai, and I don't know whether that was the reason for it. Was Jepchirchir that one of the athletes who received a bottle outside that zone?
Not 100%. I haven't had a chance to look into it. This only came up quite late on. So But if they did break the rules, you'd think that there'd be some sort of there would be a big decision to
Yeah,
change
I
it
don't know
after the race.
exactly how they apply it. They clearly don't apply all the rules strictly. It's not black and white. But largely, if it happens once or twice and it's not materially influencing the outcome of the race, then I'm okay with it being yellow.
Well, it is materially influencing the outcome if you're handing bottles to.
If it
It's
happens a lot,
an advantage to your runners.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's different in concept to pushing someone and so on. You know, which is a direct impact on the race. I don't know. It's a difficult one. You'd have to see exactly how often it happened, where it happened, were they receiving bottles. Is it just outside the zone, or is it halfway between two zones, as far outside of each zone as you can have? I think stuff like that makes a difference. But it would feel, yeah, it would be pretty hollow to like lose a gold medal because of that, no?
without a doubt.
So
okay.
I'm comfortable with it being common sense in that regard.
I thought I'd mention that one. So tomorrow we have the big race, the women's 1500 meters. I'm not making any predictions, but it's going to be Faith Kipyegon. That's the end of that. Because I was looking at this. I'm being a little bit tongue in cheek, but I was looking at it, and nobody else comes close to it. Jessica Hull is the next best athlete as far as personal bests go, and I'll be honest. From what I've seen of Jess Hull so far and recently, she doesn't look in the best of form.
No, she doesn't look sharp. I agree with you. In either her Diamond League final, where she said it was because of a big training block, but then she should have gone away and come to World Champs looking really sharp and tapered, but she hasn't looked particularly good. So a great deal here depends on how they run it relative to Kipyegon and what Kipyegon does, of course, in the first instance. We've seen bigger upsets, but this would be massive. Kipyegon is as big a favourite to win this as Duplantis is in the pole vault.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
And so going back on everything we've just been saying, why doesn't she just time trial it as fast as she can?
Well, I think she might. I don't see Kipyegon falling into the trap of letting it crawl along at 4:05 pace for the first 600-700 meters. I think she will run it at 65, 66. Oh no, sorry, that's 4-minute pace. 63-second laps, which is a 3:57 pace. And then because she knows she can kick off that pace. No one else is going to do that. So I expect that Kipyegon will be aggressive in this. She was in Paris last year. I think she knows how to win these races from the front. She's comfortable doing it. So I fully expect that to be her strategy. There's no point at all the only way Kipyegon loses this is if she gets caught up in amongst some legs and falls over. So why allow it to happen?
No chance for a world record, I don't think. I don't think she'll go to it because of the conditions as much as anything else.
Because, and again, she, as you said, she's so superior that she doesn't need to run a 350 to beat this field. She can run a 355 because she can kick off a 355 and everyone else is in PB territory, with the exception of Hull, but I'm not sure Hull's at that level at the moment because Welteji's not there. And I think the next best athletes are all 354, 355 athletes, and if she sets it up like that as a pace setter who just gets faster and faster and faster, no one's coming around her. So I fully expect that. Where it's interesting is if she does go out and run sort of 62 for the first lap, and through the 800 in 2:04, then if you're Hull, do you go with that? Because if you are a little bit off your best and you crack and run 3:57, you're coming fifth.
Yeah. So I think Hull's got to be sensible here and just put herself into place for silver. A bit like ball in the relay. You've got to settle
business
for what
decision.
You can get. Yeah.
I agree with you, but I think she'll go for it.
I hope she does.
Because it's what she's tried to do in Paris as well. So I think I think Hull will be brave, and I fully expect her to try and go, assuming Kipyegon goes 3:53 pace. Maybe Kipyegon doesn't. Maybe she backs herself to. Maybe she wants to save energy for the 5,000, where she knows she's going to need something really spectacular, and she says, "I can win this race in 3:59 with a 58-second last lap." It's possible she goes that way as well. So it'll be intriguing to see how it's won, but I would be astonished if it's not won by Kipyegon.
Well, the other big race tomorrow, I call it the big race, is the men's 110-meter hurdles. So this tomorrow is the dull day that you have been craving,
I thought that
because the
about
110
today.
meter hurdles, anything can happen. So it's very difficult to make a prediction. Very much like the women's hurdles. It only takes you to clip one barrier and it's all over. I watched some of the qualifying today. Holloway is really the only name. Well, no, actually, I know called out Tinch, but Holloway, he snuck through his qualifying round in fourth, and he doesn't look like he's with it at all. I don't think he has been for half the season.
No.
So I think Tinch. I was looking at this season's runs, the times, and I think there's only a couple of them that have gone under 13.
Well,
So,
Tinch has done it more than once. He's
yeah,
got 3 sub-13s this year. He's got 3 of the top 4 in the world, 5 of the top 10. So in an event where we say anything can happen, when you're as consistent as Tinch has been, you'd be foolish not to bet on him. Although you'd be foolish to bet on anyone in a hurdles race, but you know what I mean.
Japan had as a big medal hope, though, doesn't he?
Yeah,
Urutake?
that'll be I saw they've got a bronze in the race walking, but it'll be their first track medal. They've threatened a few guys who've been in contention at the bell, but no one so far. So hopefully that'll be good for them to get that. But I would imagine that Tinch wins this. I would not even try and guess who's going to come second and third, though.
But it's another one of those ones where the semis are on the same day, so it's hard to predict the final when you don't even know who's in it. So
Yeah,
we no jinxing anybody. No, leave
no.
it. We've also men's high jump tomorrow and the men's hammer.
Another gold for New Zealand, potentially in the high jump. What a championships for them. They must consider this already a success. I said earlier on, Kenya's been really bad. I'd say Kenya's probably the most disappointed so far, right? Maybe US distance men.
Yeah, well, we haven't had that many opportunities. I think the US leads the medal table by quite a way at the moment. I haven't looked, but I'm guessing they do.
Yeah, they should though, because they're good at spinning around and throwing things.
Well, I think there's going to be another one tomorrow. Ethan Katzberg.
Okay, not
The men's hammer.
Canadian, but North
Canadian.
American. Yeah.
North American, we're counting them all together now, apparently. Just so your predictions come true. So
Is there still a border there? I think there's still a border there.
There's still a border there. Now, let's not go into politics again, please.
Yes, he seems the likeliest to win that as well. So you're right. That'll be Canadian hammer throwing then, men and women's titles for them, if he does it, of course.
That'll be good.
Yeah.
Here we go.
What's going on with the kits? How can countries have 2 different kits in the same race?
I was wondering that.
Like, what's happening there? Kenya's got it. USA's got it. Jake Whiteman was in white today, and Josh Kerr was in blue. You figure they just say this is the blue kit for the US, white for whatever. It's I don't know.
Home and away kits.
Yeah.
I don't know. I did notice it. I think it was. Who did I notice it on first? Was it Sha'Carri Richardson was looking different to somebody else? I was like, why have they got different kits on?
Yeah.
So they can. Oh, I don't know. Don't know.
Yeah. Anyway, Kerr in blue, Whiteman in white. What else was interesting there today that I was going to bring up? There was one other thing, but I don't recall what it was. Is it likely to get cooler? Have we seen the forecasts?
I have no idea. I'm not going to lie to you. I haven't looked because we're not very good at weather predictions on it.
No, we don't even know what that means. Okay, I think that's it then.
Yep.
What a day. I genuinely, today might be one of the most interesting days of track athletics I can remember in a long, long, long time. From that marathon finish all the way to Hocker's controversial, I guess, and disappointing disqualification, a steeplechase, just incredible. And Tokyo's been fantastic so far. We're 3 days in. You got
the weather tomorrow is getting even hotter.
Oh,
it's up
joyous.
to 34 tomorrow for the 1500, but then cooler on Thursday and cool on the weekend.
By cool, we're talking mid-20s or what?
Yeah, mid-20s down to mid-20s with a bit of rain.
Still hot enough to affect races, which is, as I say, interesting. Okay, that's it, folks. Thanks very much for listening. As always, the conversation continues on Discourse. There's a link in the show notes if you're enjoying what we do and enjoying discovering how we don't even know that a world record is broken on the day we cover the action. That's me. That's where you sign up on Patreon. You can join the conversation. Thanks very much for all your thoughts so far. And we will see you all, or speak to you all rather, tomorrow again. For now, goodbye.